Mr. Toastmaster of the evening, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Contradictions. If you were to ask my friends, they would tell you that I am full of contradictions. I am a student, as you heard Arden say. I'm going to school right now for my PhD, but I'm also a teacher. I teach at Wayland Baptist University, part-time in the psychology department. I also am a homeschool teacher because I've been teaching my son since he was in the 3rd grade, and he's getting ready to graduate high school this year. God willing, he will graduate. And it's all been an adventure, but it's definitely a different way of being. Being a student is not being a teacher, but they do complement each other. So there's that contradiction. Another contradiction is I absolutely hate getting up early. I despise it. I want to sleep late every day. And yet, I get up at 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym. So there's that contradiction. And people would say, why? Even my husband's like, how do you get up? Because it feels really good to go to the gym. And I don't like to go after work. I don't like to go in the evening because usually something's coming up. My son has Boy Scouts. I come to Toastmasters. I have some other things that I have to do. And I'm tired in the evening. I just don't really feel like it. That couch and that TV, yes, I do watch TV, is calling. And I want to go and sit there, and I don't want to go to the gym. And plus, everybody else is at the gym at that time, and it's very crowded. So I get up, and the alarm will go up, and I do hit the snooze. And then I say, okay, you know how good you're going to feel if you get up, so just get up. And I do, and it's worth it. And I go and I lift weights one day, and then I do aerobics, or the bike, not aerobics. I don't like aerobics classes. I'm not that coordinated, and I really don't want it. To me, exercising is a solitary pursuit. My husband, I was telling my husband Mike, who's also a member, that it's very zen for me. I can just be alone when I'm exercising, and I can contemplate the universe. And actually, it wakes me up when I exercise. So I do that. Another contradiction is, talking about Zen, is that I'm a very spiritual person. But yet, and I'm active in my church right now, we just started going to a new church called the Blue Jean Church. For a lot of reasons, because you don't have to get dressed up. That was one of the draws. But I also really like their philosophy and how they approach things. But right now I'm struggling with a lot of fundamental issues with the Christian concept because I think it's very linear and very small-minded because God is bigger. So I'm having trouble with some of the concepts that limit the beliefs about God and Jesus and all of those things. So I'm having to work through those things. So that's another contradiction that's going on in my life. And then the contradiction between individual and parenthood. And those of you that are parents know what that's like. Because I want to do what I want to do, and yet I want to be a good parent. And I have been. And it's a sacrifice. And usually I enjoy the sacrifice. But there are times, and now that my son's getting older, I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, where I'll be able to say, you do your thing, and I'll do mine, and I'll be here for you, and yet I'm welcoming that. And when people talk about empty nest, I don't quite get the concept. Now, granted, he hasn't left yet, so we'll see what happens. And he's not planning on leaving anytime soon. So that's another thing. You know, and that's okay, too. So we're trying to figure out this new relationship between how do we treat him as an adult, and yet the contradiction is he's still very much a child because he's 17 and he doesn't always make the best choices. And he's a really good kid, and that's the thing I have to always remember. But all these contradictions that are going on in my life and make up who I am and who I want to be. You know, I consider myself an intellectual. I strive to be an intellectual. I want to learn about everything. You know, I work with people who are 20-somethings, and they were talking about something called house music. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? You play in your house? And they were making fun of me. So I went and looked it up on Google, and I'm like, it's just techno, it's disco. It's like, that's not anything new. So they were all, you know, thought they really knew something. But I have to look things up. So I consider myself always wanting to know things, and yet I have to admit that if I woke up tomorrow and they called me and Cosmo wanted me on the cover of the magazine, I'd drop it all and be a model. As silly as that is. Because I bought into the culture. You know, I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, and thin is good, even though the contradiction is it's not healthy. You know, I understand all that, but yet I have always, my whole life, thought I've been overweight. And there were times I look at old pictures and I wish I had embraced it, because I wasn't overweight as opposed to now. So there's all these contradictions going on. We can be, consider myself a very strong woman. When I was a kid and even a teenager, I wouldn't have been caught dead talking to a bunch of people. And that's one of the reasons I joined Toastmasters, was because I said, this is ridiculous. I can't spend my whole life not being able to get up in front of a group of people because I have a lot to say and I want to say it. So the contradictions are what makes my life interesting and rich. And I hope that you will find out there are many more in my life, and I'll save those for other speeches.